Hi, my name is Stephen Lulich. I'm with Lulich Attorneys, and this is the Lulich Corner. And today we have with us the Mayor of Fellsmere, Joel Tyson. Hi, Joel.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
Okay, good. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Kissimmee. I'm a sixth-generation Floridian. We have people, my family's been around Florida for many, many years. I have an ancestor buried up near Ocala. A cousin of mine went up and took a picture of his tombstone. And it's weird because his name was Joel also. It's weird to see a tombstone with your name on it.
Tombstone.
That's right.
Yes.
But he was born in 1790.
Wow.
And he died, I guess, up there in that area. I think he was like 48 years old. And I tell people I didn't realize there was anything in Florida at that time except mosquitoes and Indians. But apparently there was a few people. So.
And so where in Florida did you live?
Well, I was born in Kissimmee.
Kissimmee. And so then you went into what, the military?
Yeah. Well, I graduated from high school in 1950 over at St. Cloud, and I went in the military immediately. I was 17 years old when I went in the Navy, and I did 3 years in the Navy, and I got out, couldn't find a job. That was after the Korean War, and we were in a recession, which at that time I had no idea what a recession was, but I did find out that they weren't hiring anybody, and I couldn't find a job anywhere. I went out to Texas. Figured with the oil fields and the refineries and all that, I could get a job. All I knew was administration, and nobody was hiring. And my brother talked me into going back in the service, so I went in the Air Force. And I did 17 years in the Air Force.
Okay, so you were a career military.
Yes, and I retired in 1970. I have been retired from the military for 52 years.
Wow.
Which is unusual. You normally don't live that long when you retire.
Yeah. So, and is that when you settled in this area?
Well, I had to come over. Actually, I had to come over here. My mother was here, and because I was 17, I had to get her to sign for me to go in the military. So I made Fellsmere my home of records at that time. But I didn't live here. I immediately went to service, and I was traveling around in the military.
So that was you. Let's see, you got out of the military in
1970.
So you were in for 20 years.
Yep.
So that was back in the 50s when you were first time
I went in 1950.
In Fellsmere.
Yeah, well, yeah, right? I came over, that's exactly right.
Well, what was in Fellsmere in 1950?
Well, it was a quaint little town. There was all on Broadway. There was a lot of stores. There's pictures of it out there. My friend Corky Corker, he took pictures back in those days of Broadway. He had cars and stuff like that. They had a hardware store, and the post office was there. They had a bar, of course, and there was a boarding house. That's where my brother stayed, and my mother cooked in that boarding house for a while. And then there was the old hotel in Fellsmere. Have you ever been out there to know where I'm talking about with the old hotel?
Some of the stuff, yes.
Yeah, Marcia Littlejohn always talked about that old hotel because she lived up in Melbourne, and her dad used to bring them down on Sunday to have dinner because it was a family-style dinner in
nice.
There.
And so you ended up working in Fellsmere?
Well, when I retired and came back, I worked out in Fellsmere when they built the packing house out there for Sun Ag. They were looking for a dispatcher, and they hired me on as a dispatcher. I did that for 6 years, or 7 years actually, and during that time I was trying to get a job overseas. I answered every ad, every follow-up, and I couldn't get hired. So I stayed here, and finally there was a group of people came to Palm Bay, and they were hiring people to go to Saudi Arabia. And I went over and interviewed, and they hired me. And that's where I got started. Once I got over, and I found out.
Was that in the 80s?
That was actually, it was 1977.
Okay.
So I went to Saudi Arabia on a 1-year contract and ended up staying over there 8 years.
Oh, wow. So you were there during the Gulf War?
No, I had already left before the Gulf War.
Okay.
I stayed there, and I worked 3 different contracts during that period of time. But I found out they wouldn't hire me based on my military overseas experience. They were looking for people that were willing to go to these out-of-the-way places and stay there. It cost about $50,000 actually to process a person, get them through their physical, do all the paperwork, background investigation, and pay for their transportation overseas and back. So they wanted people that would stay.
Okay, so when you finished up in Saudi Arabia, then you came back to Fellsmere.
Yes. Well, actually, I stopped working. I was sick when I turned 64. That's when nobody would hire me anymore. So I came back.
So that's when you went into politics?
And that's exactly what happened. I
Like
came back
that.
to Fellsmere, and the mayor talked me into running for city council. And when I got on city council, I did not like the way he was running the city. And Fellsmere was laughing stock. I don't know if you remember that. It was just a little hick town, and nobody paid much attention to us. It was embarrassing when they closed the school down, the kids had to go to high school down in Vero Beach. Everybody made fun of them. And somebody interviewed one of the newspapers, I guess it was Press Journal, interviewed the mayor at the time, and wanted to know if he went down to any of the functions down at the county. And he said no, that he was a self-professed West Virginia hillbilly, and he didn't go to those fancy places, and he didn't dress up for anybody. His version of a three-piece suit was blue jeans, T-shirt, and sneakers. So he didn't get dressed up to do anything. And I decided that was my goal, was to change Fellsmere.
That's nice. That's nice. And you've been in and out of the limelight out there. You've been
for about 25 years now.
25 years. You've been on the council. You've been a mayor. You've been a councilman. You've been several times mayor, right?
Well, I was mayor from the first time I ran against this same guy and beat him. That was in 2001. I was mayor from 2001 to 2003, and then he came back and beat me by 10 votes. Well, while I was in there, I decided that if Fellsmere was ever going to grow, we needed a professional to run the city. And John, did you remember John Little?
Yes.
Okay, John was the city manager for Vero Beach for about 25 years. And they hired him out here. He had to retire down there because he had macular degeneration. He was going blind. And he came out and helped us put the water system in for Fellsmere. And they made him the administrative assistant to the mayor. For all intents and purposes, he was Fellsmere's first city manager.
Okay.
He and I got together, and we rewrote the charter for the city and changed it over
To a city manager.
form of government. Exactly right.
Very interesting.
I didn't know that the city was ready for it, but it really surprised me. We had 19 amendments to the charter to make that happen, and it passed by about a 70%.
So you've done all of these things, a career in the military, and Saudi Arabia, and out in Fellsmere. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 90.
90. You look remarkable, and
That's what people tell me.
Yeah.
I talk to people on the phone, and I tell them I'm 90 years old, and they say, "Well, you don't sound like you're 90." I said, "Well, how do you supposed to sound when you're 90?"
I love it.
Whatever.
I love it. So, Fellsmere has grown a lot in the past.
Well, once
30 years.
once we got the city manager in and got the charter changed, we hired Jason Nunemaker, and everybody knows about Jason. He was a great guy. He was young. He was a true visionary, and I owe the growth of Fellsmere. We were 1 square mile for 100 years, and because of Jason, we now are just over 60 square miles. I don't know if you know it, but I-95 runs through Fellsmere now. About
That's
10,
true.
10 miles.
That's
of
true.
it.
You're on the east side of 95, and so I think somebody, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I think somebody had mentioned to me that you have more territory as far as any Vero Beach or
We're the
Sebastian?
largest city by land area
By land area
in the county. Sebastian is the largest by population.
Yeah, and so that's interesting because right now, okay, or I should say in the past, Fellsmere, as you said, was looked at as a little hick town.
That's
And
exactly
so
right.
this little hick town now has more land mass as a city than any of the big cities, which is Vero and Sebastian. And so the future holds that Fellsmere will eventually, population-wise,
If we fill up
the
all that
county.
land, it
Yep,
will. Yeah.
control the county, and that takes vision. And yes, you were part of making that happen.
Well, we have a good council. I tell people that we have let's see, we now have three Mexicans. We got two women, three guys, a couple of gringos, as we call them, and an old guy. That's not the old guy's me.
Real diversification.
That's right. It is. It's very diversified.
Nice.
So.
Nice.
And we get along very well. We represent different factions of the city, and we take care of it. We've got a good working team with our public works people. We got the best police chief, I think, in the world with Keith Touchberry. He's straightened out. We now are up to speed with. We've got a full complement of policemen, where we can have two people on duty at all times. And
Cover that 60 square miles.
that's exactly right. Yeah. Now people see our squad cars out there on I-95, and they want to know, what are you doing out there? That's not your jurisdiction. Oh, why, excuse me, that is in our jurisdiction.
That's true. So what do you? Is there something that you would say you'd like to see happen in the future?
I think we're moving along. We did a couple of things when Jason left. We put out looking for resumes for people that were looking for the job. We got a lot of resumes in from people up north that wanted to get out of the coal country. I knew what that was. They were looking for a place to retire.
Yeah.
One guy from Alaska, he wanted to come to Fellsmere. We hired from within. We hired Mark Mathis, who was the community development director, but he had been working under Jason for several years, and he just picked up and went, and it saved us a lot of money, because we'd had to pay for those people to come in to do the interview, get them a place to stay, and so forth. And then we also, our city clerk retired, and we had a young lady, a Hispanic lady, that worked over at the police department, and she volunteered to take that job. So, and both of them have just been tremendous. It's saved us a lot of money, and we're moving
forward. So, I guess another question is, since you have annexed a huge amount of land, are you still, thinking about annexing more land?
Well, not really. But I'll tell you why we annexed all that land, Steve, was because the people, the county would not change the zoning out there. We were into citrus and cattle. And when all the citrus got burned out, particularly the Sun Ag property out there, they lost all their citrus. And they wanted to change and start developing, for changing the zoning to residential and commercial, and the county wouldn't let them do it. So they came to us. And they said, would you annex us in? And so we got 18,000 acres with the first one. Actually, the first one was the Anson property, which is from I-95 into the city. There was 3,284 acres out there that we annexed in. And then Sun Ag wanted us to do the 34.
So you have some nice zoning diversification.
Yeah, and the Corrigan property, down close to Vero,
Yes.
that's what put us with I-95 and put us almost to Vero. They came in. Graves Brothers had asked us, but we couldn't annex Graves Brothers because they weren't contiguous to the city. So that's how we got
Can't have any gaps.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Is there any final words you'd like to leave the public with?
Well, just I pray for my health. I just in November took office for 2 more years, and I tell everybody now that my challenge is to outlive my term. No, I think that we're doing well. the Frog Leg Festival, this is 32 years with the Frog Leg Festival.
Yes.
That's our biggest draw.
That's true.
And it was tremendous. We had the largest amount of people out there that I've ever seen in the 25 years I've been there. So, no, I think we're doing very well out there, and I appreciate the opportunity. I like to talk about Fellsmere.
Yeah, and thank you for coming in, and thank you for your service, Joe.
Well, thank you.
All righty. Have a great day.